The melee continues. Okay, so today we are having a look at Zack Snyder's return after many years to the zombie apocalypse
His
genre.
grand
Although
return. His grand return to the zombie
his
movie.
grand return, his grand 2.5 hour return
Epic.
to the genre, he actually broke his bread as a director doing a remake of George Romero's Dawn of the Dead. There was a whole
Which
wave of these kind of horror remakes of
which
old
I don't
movies.
remember being all that bad. The
No, no,
remake of
no.
Dawn of
As
the Dead.
as as far as far as all of those 2000s remakes of 70s horror films, 70s and 80s horror films go, it was one of the better ones. And in fact, I remember the reactions at the time being, "Wow, this is so much better than I expected it to be." And then afterwards, of course, he did 300, Watchmen, and he turned into the, I guess you could say, sophisticated version of Michael Bay we know him as today.
See, here's the thing. This is going to be a hard movie for me to review because even though I wasn't in love with the movie, like I actually like Zack Snyder as a person, and it's like I don't know the guy, but every time I see him like in an interview, it's just like you seem like an all right guy. So hating on this movie is actually going to be a little hard for me, I have to say.
Yeah, he seems like a decent enough person. Whatever quibbles I may have with him as a filmmaker, he does seem like a genuinely nice guy if ever I see him interviewed. And I really want to emphasize that because that's the last nice thing I'm going to say about him for this entire review.
I've got
Time to get
some
the hatchet out.
I've got nice things to say about this movie.
Okay, I'm exaggerating slightly. I do have a few nice things to say about it overall. However, okay, to be fair, it's a Netflix original. It wasn't released theatrically, but this doesn't really feel all that cinematic to me. To me, this feels kind of like a big budget mini series that was cut down to 2.5 hours and then released as a feature film. It doesn't feel like it was originally a film. Like the filmmaking by Zack Snyder's standards feels kind of bland. It's mostly handheld, and like there's good handheld camera work. In fact, I've seen Zack Snyder do handheld camera work very well in his previous films, but here it's that lazy kind of handheld camera work where it feels like it was only shot handheld so that they could get it done quickly, so they wouldn't have to waste time blocking and setting up things in a more steady kind of way. And
Yeah, I think like the it's very obvious at points they're that big open part of Las Vegas where they always seem to end up is like very clearly a set, which is like matte paintings behind it. And
yeah, with
I feel like Man of Steel had that same problem, like when Zod and Superman are destroying the city, like that part where Lawrence Fishburne is, like which is meant to be like an open street where loads of stuff is collapsed. It's very clearly just like a set in a studio, and 300 obviously just is a giant set in the studio, just on that little cliff face part. And I think that's kind of a recurring issue with Zack Snyder's movies, where you can kind of see the seams around everything, around like the entire set, and just kind of go like, oh, this is taking me a bit out of the movie.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things where it's not that he doesn't know that's an issue. I think that he believes it's not something anybody should worry about. I mean, in the same
Well,
way Alfred Hitchcock, when he made films, it's obvious that it's in a set and it's obvious that they're on a painted backdrop, but
see,
he understood that the audience either wouldn't care or, in his opinion, shouldn't care. And I kind of feel Zack Snyder feels the same way. Now, the story, on the other hand,
I just want, sorry, can I just cut across and say, like, I was worried we wouldn't find anything nice to say, and already we're comparing him to Hitchcock, so I think we're off to like a respectful start.
well,
To this
comparing to
movie.
Hitchcock in the way that neither of them seem to give a shit if a background is obviously artificial.
I like that you
But
have to qualify it. You're not comfortable with the comparison.
yeah. Anyway, the story is very different from Dawn of the Dead, actually. In this case, it's not actually the entire world that's infected with the zombie plague. It's just one city in particular.
Yeah, it's
This
Return of the Living Dead rules.
Yeah, which makes sense because I always thought that if zombies broke out in one particular city that was in the middle of the desert, it would be really difficult for that zombie plague to spread all
I
over the
think
place because it's so isolated.
I think every struggling YouTube channel has a video about why a zombie like plague wouldn't last. So
Yeah, exactly. And I guess they're actually taking that seriously in this case. Okay, so an army platoon tries to transport, I guess, some kind of a bioweapon in the form of a zombie from Wait, is it actually Area 51 or is it just hinted at to be
Oh
Area
yeah,
50?
it's definitely Area 50. Yeah, it's just hinted at. Like it's basically like hitting you in the ribs so hard with with an elbow, like you're getting blown.
Area 51.
You
Yeah,
get, you
so
know where we're coming from, right? Like,
yeah,
that may
so
be an alien spaceship back there,
yeah, so
Like,
anyway,
is it obvious what we're doing?
long story short, the zombie plague breaks out in Las Vegas, and it's now a couple of years later, and there's this bunch of
You're skipping over the amazing title sequence that is unintentionally hilarious at times.
I no, I think it was meant to be funny. I mean, it's "Viva Las Vegas" or a cover of "Viva Las Vegas" by Elvis,
Which is weird
with
because there are Elvis songs in the movie.
not that one, funnily enough, but I don't know, maybe they're worried about copyright or something. But so the story is there's this bunch of army veterans who have lost family members, have lost friends. It was their job in the early days of the zombie plague to clean up the streets of Las Vegas, to get survivors out, and they're heroes basically, but they ended up getting shit for thanks, and they're all now working minimum wage jobs, just kind of scraping by. They're all miserable. But then an opportunity comes along where this businessman enlists them for a job. He says, "Hey, look, I had about $50 million stashed in a safe in Las Vegas, and even though I got all that money back from the insurance company, it's still there physically in physical bills. So if I pay you guys a cut of my money, can you go in for me and get all that cash out, airlift it out with a helicopter, and that way I get almost double my original money? But shh, nobody needs to know about this." So we get a ragtag bunch of misfits in
Headed
a
by
heist movie, basically, where they've got to go into enemy territory, the enemy in this case being zombies, and airlift a bunch of money out of there without anybody knowing.
you see, like the enemy only seems like it's zombies. The real enemy is people.
Oh yeah, oh, so profound.
Yeah,
Never seen
there you
that
go. There
before.
you go. The zombies are actually like, even though they're murderers, they're kind of innocent in this movie. Like it's people who are bad.
Yeah, the zombies are just kind of doing their own thing, and what
Which
I
they
do.
weren't in the original script, apparently. Apparently, like the script was a lot more dark, and Netflix went like, "If we're gonna make this, take that out, take that out, take that out." Like, apparently, there was like a whole like zombie like slave thing that was going on. Like,
Interesting, because that would explain a lot. Because this
yeah,
film is very tonally dissonant. It goes from high camp and high comedy to really dark and serious dramatic moments, but not in a good way. Like other films can manage that tone going up and down. This film can't. It's like when it feels like there's a dramatic moment, it feels like it's too dark relative to the rest of the film, relative to all the goofy shenanigans we've seen up to that point in the film. So when it arrives, you kind of can't take it seriously.
who are our characters in this movie?
Our characters are Scott. Is Scott his first name or his last? Scott
Rex.
Ward. Scott Ward, Dave Bautista, who is a compelling presence in the film. I mean,
He's
he's
all right.
playing your typical tough guy with a heart of gold, muscle bro, but he does a decent job with what he's given, and the rest I
There's
do not
Kate, his
really care
annoying
about.
daughter. There's Kate, his annoying daughter.
Kate, his annoying daughter, who's just typical like daddy daughter cliche relationship. Like they're strained because inevitably like he had to kill his wife, her mother, when the zombie plague hit, and there's tension there, and it goes
Like
exactly like you think it's going to go. There's
the thing that
absolutely
I
no
don't
surprises
understand
there.
is like the thing I have like trouble with is like she hates him for killing like zombie mother, okay, and yet she works for like an AIDS group that like help like migrants from Las Vegas who've suffered because of the zombie plague. It's like if anyone should like understand why like one of your parents killed the zombified version of your other parent, like should be this girl, but she like just clings on to like hating her dad for almost no reason, to the point where she's willing to like risk her own life just to kind of like make a rebellious point, even though she's in her 30s. Like,
Is she in her 30s?
she seems like she seems old enough to like be doing work like this, which like puts her in her mid-20s, early 30s, I would say.
Well, I would have thought like she doesn't look 30s. She looks more like early to mid 20s. But
I think she's Hollywood 30, you know.
well, yeah, maybe Hollywood 30 because like cast older if it's younger, cast younger if it's older. But anyway, yeah, they do try to kind of justify that it wasn't really because he killed her mother. It was more of the way he reacted afterwards. But
Oh,
yeah,
like
it's still
traumatized. That's
it still ends up going exactly the way you think it's going to go. There's absolutely no surprises. And as for the entire rest of the cast, I could kind of take or leave most of them. Tig Notaro was kind of a standout in this, in that she's playing
Oh, a
a...
literal standout.
What do you mean?
If you put her against the rest of the screen, like the green screen, like she's against, just stands out.
I'm going to cut that part out.
Yeah, go for it.
Tig Notaro is playing a character that normally would be played by a very macho male character, which was an interesting way to go. But for me personally, it was kind of weird because she looks exactly like an old screenwriting teacher I used to have.
Do you know like the circumstances around her being in the movie?
Oh yeah, it was originally written for a man, but
No, it wasn't just written. They shot it with, and it was Chris D'Elia who played it.
Oh Christ!
And
I
they
didn't realize
digitally
that.
replaced her with, like, replaced him with her after like the whole him being a sex pest came out, and
That is
basically
so
green screened
fascinating.
her in like digitally painted her over him. And that's why I made that joke about the green screen, because like it's very obvious at times like she's standing against a green screen like while someone's feeding her lines, but she's not actually acting with any of the cast.
That is interesting, because if that's the case, it's seamless. I did not realize that.
I'm kind of surprised to hear you say that. At a certain point, I just thought they'd start like zooming the camera, and like she'd end up like 9 feet tall next to a helicopter, just because like the shot would remain the same, but like she would just be like the same size.
Wow. But yeah, one kind of a surprise in this was not the story itself, but the mechanics of how the zombies work. In that we're used to seeing either slow zombies like in the George Romero originals, or fast zombies like in Zack Snyder's remake of Dawn of the Dead. But in this case, he actually decides to combine the two. He establishes that there's a kind of hierarchy of zombies. There's what are called the stragglers, who are like George Romero style zombies. They're kind of slow and brainless, and they're not really dangerous as long as you keep your distance from them and don't let them overwhelm you. But then there's the alpha zombies, who are midway between Zack Snyder's fast zombies in the Dawn of the Dead remake and the zombies in Pandorum, where they're more intelligent, they're stronger, they're faster, and they kind of live a tribal existence where they're like carry spears around and
like Bud from Day of the Dead.
yes, kind of like that. Only like the Bud is kind of midway between that and that. But yeah, which I did like and I'd like to see it replicated in more zombie media. But I feel like they could have done more with it. It feels like a good idea that wasn't explored to its full potential.
Like we see those like blue spores in their head when they get shot. By the way, Kate doesn't seem to know to shoot the zombies in the head at various points, which I found very strange. But we see those like blue spores come out of their head like when they get shot, and so that means like the zombie virus is essentially like some kind of like you can literally see the virus in like spores and everything. So is it a good idea to like shoot zombies in the head in like closed environments? Because this entire movie, zombies are constantly getting shot next to people, and if it's like a virus, then isn't that like the best way to transmit it, not actually getting bitten by a zombie?
Another really interesting idea that just was not explored at all. Like that's I think this film in a nutshell. There's so many interesting ideas here, but none of them are explored to their full potential. It's 2.5 hours of missed opportunity after missed opportunity.
Yeah, I don't understand like the pretense of a heist, and it turns out like what they wanted was the old cliche of like we want to turn them into weapons, but we need like a prime exact it's like sample of a zombie, so they get the zombie head. And why even bother with like a pretend heist? Why not just hire like a team of mercenaries to go in and like kidnap one of these zombies?
Yeah, exactly. They have got one guy working on the inside for
exactly.
the like. Why even bother? I guess he's greedy and he wants like 30 million of his own money back, as well as
this movie. Like the point is trying to make about people and everything. The movie should have been about like zombie tourism, like people paying that like coyote woman to like bring them into like the Las Vegas Strip, and they're all people like, you know, that guy who does like Instagram videos of him killing zombies.
Another great idea they didn't explore at all. Like, but like they
greed and trying to be famous, so like for stupid reasons, and
they could have made it like Zombie Westworld, where
where that's exactly what would have been like a better idea. And the worst part about that is they kill her off right as she develops a personality.
Spoilers.
I think anyone who's watching this review is just trying to watch someone else's, or anyone's watching this has seen the movie and just wants to understand what they saw.
Maybe, but yeah,
No
I
one's
still
watching this and like their make or break moment, or whether or not they're going to watch Army of the Dead. Either they've already watched it because they're a Zack Snyder fan, or they just want to hear what other people are saying about it.
maybe, but I guess they've
How
heard
funny!
us now, and my opinion is it's maybe if you're a Zack Snyder fan, maybe if you're into the zombie genre, maybe, and you've got 2.5 hours spare where you've got absolutely nothing going on, maybe give this a go. It's a just barely 3.0 out of 5, and that's being very generous. I
Did
think
you
if it
not
were
think
just
the neck snap scene was funny? Where like that woman and Dave Bautista have like a big emotional moment, and a zombie just comes in and like literally turns her head like completely around.
not funny, that was just kind of awkward.
Do you think Chris D'Elia, the guy they replaced Tig Notaro with, like, or the guy who Tig Notaro replaced, like, has seen this movie or like requested from Zack Snyder like the original cut of it with him in it?
I neither know nor care, and I don't think anybody else should.
I just
Okay,
wonder if Chris
so
D'Elia is going to try to start like a hashtag release the Dahlia cut like movement.
release the daily cut.
Now the Dahlia cut.
Yeah. So what's your rating?
Like a 2.5. This is the first time I've used a point anything like, but and my whole point five of that is just like I guess if you're a Zack Snyder fan, you might like this movie. Like I didn't love it, but I definitely can see a lot of the things that people like about Zack Snyder movies in this movie. So yeah, I guess if you're already into him, like you'll probably like this. But it left me a little cold, much like the zombies themselves.
Indeed. The only reason I'm giving it a 3.0, meaning just barely worth watching, is it does have a lot of interesting ideas in it that I would like to see explored in other zombie media, like there being a hierarchy of zombies, like some zombies being smarter than others. Lesson, Zack Snyder, if you're listening, you're not listening, obviously, but Zack Snyder
Keep
fans,
making movies, Zach. You keep doing you. That's what I say.
keep doing you, just maybe flesh things out a bit before you release your vision to the public.
Nah, just let him be the insane person he is, and just make the movies he wants to make.
I'm fine
I'm
with him
actually
being
like,
insane. I just want him to be a more controlled kind of insane.
I mean, more insane movies than an insane person.
Both.